Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I connect successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Heather Rowley, an accountant turned therapist and money coach, who spoke to me about money mindset and the fascinating connection between spending habits and other behavior patterns, and Mark Wainwright, a fractional sales leader who walked us through the very important process of business development and understanding how to build and maintain a healthy business pipeline. So be sure to check out those episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like to consume your podcast material. We are there, so go check out those episodes. Today's episode is brought to you by Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is a fractional CFO agency dedicated to supporting growing B2B service companies. If you're looking to up-level the financial strategy and leadership in your business, visit claracfo.com to learn more. Or feel free to email me directly at hannah@claracfo.com. Today's guest was introduced to me by Mallory Ulazik. Mallory is one of the co-founders of Week of the Website and was interviewed on this podcast a little while back. We talked about productizing a service business, and that's an episode you don't want to miss. To learn more about Mallory and how a website can be built in a week, which is pretty amazing, visit weekofthewebsite.com. And also be sure to check out her episode. We will put it in the show notes. Today's guest is Lynn Rivest. Lynn is a digital strategist and business advisor who specializes in positioning and messaging. She helps founders make bold choices to differentiate their business and identify the clients who care most about that difference. Lynn and I recently worked together on a project for my YouTube channel, and we're going to unpack that process during our time today. So I'm looking forward to that. Lynn, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, Lynn, I didn't know what positioning was when I was first introduced to you, but I had a problem, and positioning was kind of presented as, hey, this might potentially be the thing that I need. Can you explain to people what positioning is?
Yeah. So positioning is not, we don't go looking for it. Hey, I need some positioning, but I like to define it. I've borrowed a lot from April Dunford, who is the positioning expert for B2B, big, large businesses. And it's basically how you define how you're different in the market to your best fit customers who care the most about the value you provide. So how you're the best at doing this particular thing. And position is what it is. It's how do you help somebody figure out where you fit in my whole brain schema, like all the things I have in my brain. CFO. Okay, CFO fits in the money category, but where? Like, what about you? How can I subcategorize you? Or that's how our brains work. So it actually is also literally the position that it fits in your brain.
And we've had a branding expert on the podcast before. How do you see that it interplays with brand and positioning? Because they aren't the same thing, but I know that they are related.
Yeah. And it gets confusing too, because sometimes people say brand positioning. Some people say brand differentiation. Like you put brand in front of the word and it's like, what? So the way I like to separate them out is that brand is about perception. So you have a position that's about categorizing, knowing where you are in the world, where do you stand? And then the brand is, once I'm there, what feeling am I getting from you? How do I perceive the personality of the brand and that kind of thing? So they work together. I would say, though, positioning comes first. Positioning is your direction. It's really like the location finding first. And then, brand comes into play for, I would say, more of the perception part. They work together.
Yeah, work together. The positioning, I think, is really about you deciding as a business where you want to be sitting in the head of the customer. Is that rather than, because I believe that if we don't make that proactive approach, the customer will categorize us wherever they see fit, right?
That's right.
Like if
Yeah.
you're not very active about it, then they will file you away. Like I run into that a lot with being a CPA.
Yeah.
So people, when they hear CPA, they immediately think taxes. And
Mm.
then all the time people are emailing me and say, hey, even if they maybe know I don't do taxes, they're going to ask me a tax question.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because that I've been filed away in people's brains as a tax accountant, basically.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm working on that.
Exactly. I mean, we have these broader categories, and if we're not giving people more specifics, you're going to get lumped into that broad category, right?
Mhm.
Dentist is dentist, doctor is doctor. But what if you're the dentist who feels like a spa, who you'll never feel pain and you'll never feel ashamed for not flossing, or, all these things that come into play? Now I've fit you into a spa dentist category. Like
Mm,
I don't know if that's how it works in your head, but you're giving people more of that nuance.
mm.
Yeah.
Why does this matter for business?
It matters because in life, humans tend to do things directionless. I think we believe we know what we're doing. Like, I want to make this much money. I want to grow the business. I want to, we have these ideas, but what direction are you going to take to achieve those things that you want to, do? And positioning gives you direction. And as Mallory said, it's the keys to unlock every business decision.
Mm,
Once you know the direction, it maps to it. So are we going to invest in this particular part to grow the business? Does it map to the direction to where we are right now with our positioning? It's a really great criteria building, kind of, what would you call that? A framework for your criteria. So it's super important. It gives you that direction. And I think we know it, but we don't
mhm.
know it well enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also, I mean, when we know that, it can help us down the road with being much more effective in marketing, or it could be much more effective in different aspects of the business, what even products to offer, what services to offer. If we're super clear on where we want to be positioned in the
Mhm.
market or positioned in people's brains, I think that it like you're saying, like it makes other decisions easier. But then there's the financial aspect of that is also, they're probably going to be easier, but also, when being easier, probably less expensive. I'm just thinking about, like,
Yeah.
if people are so clear about what you do, and they can categorize you in their brain. I'm just thinking about referrals, for example. I'm going back to my CPA example, but like, if it's really clear who somebody is, that they're filed away in the right part of somebody's brain, it's going to be so much easier for them to go, oh, you need that. I have the person for you at this point
Mhm.
in time. And referral business is like one of the cheapest ways you can possibly get a new
Yes.
client.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
from a financial perspective, I really like that. And also, it has a lot of other like marketing benefits too, but
Mhm.
um that's really, really good. I think one of the things that, like you said towards the beginning, like nobody comes to you saying, I need new positioning. How do people know they have a positioning problem and they might need to work on it?
Yeah, it comes in a few different ways. It can be, I get a number of I get people on calls. They're interested in talking to me, but it doesn't end up in new business.
Mhm.
Uh, it could be that when you're networking, when you're talking to people for even referrals, you're having a hard time explaining the value of what you do or the difference of what you do. So they'll often say things like, I know we do good work. I just don't know exactly how to explain it to people. So that's the messaging piece, but it ladders up to, because you don't have this clear positioning. It can show up with ads that aren't working very well. It can show up with, and then people will often think, well, that's a messaging problem. Well, you have a messaging problem likely because you don't have clear positioning.
Mm,
So there's usually, we have to dig a few layers up to get to the core problem, not just the symptoms. So those are some examples of what it would be. And to your point, it's an amplifier of many business operations, marketing, that kind of thing. So when anything is kind of feels like it should be doing really well, but it's middling, or like you just can't see why it's not working, it's usually a positioning problem.
Hmm. Yeah, it's maybe not throw more ad spend at that Google ad. It's maybe go back and say, what is it about your messaging that is not really hitting
Mhm.
people? They're not getting it.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not just a matter of do more of that same thing.
right, right.
Okay. So, when you, I guess, like when people are coming to you and you're having those discovery calls, um, what's a clear indicator for you that like, yes, I can help? Like
Mhm.
what's something that's
Yeah, it's in the whole conversation, there will be a theme that comes up. They'll have said a number of things that I'm like, there's your differentiator, there's your differentiator. People know it, but they don't know that they know it.
Mhm.
So when I see that, when in the conversation, I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what makes you different, you just haven't seen it. Then doing the work is going to be fantastic,
Mm.
because you've already, like, we had that experience, you and I. It's like it was
Yeah.
all there, and you were like, yeah, I say
Mhm.
these things all the time. But so in that discovery call, that usually happens fairly quickly, and then it's like, yep, we're off to the races, because people will be willing to be like, yes, you're right, I have been talking about that. Now let's define it more clearly. So that's a big one.
Mhm. Um, why does differentiation matter?
So right. In a world, so different, I like to dig into words. I'm like, different is a big word. What does it mean
Mhm.
exactly? There is a quote that I used to, well, I still like it, but I've been toying with it. So Sally Hogshead, she wrote a book, Fascinate, some years ago. She's a well-renowned speaker in like business circles. I don't know if anybody knows her here. Probably somebody on listening knows who she is. She has a quote that's better, or different is better than better.
Mm.
And because people would say, like, here's why I'm better than the other choices, right? Or here's why I'm the best option. And that's my position. I like to say that different helps you be better.
Mm.
So when you know your difference, meaning what are my particular, so you as a person are already different. If you're representing your business, that's great, but you need to know what about you, the overlapping circles of the things that you value that matter most to you. You have to know what those are, so that others who care about those same things can find you, that you can help them find you. So different means I've defined my own kind of Venn diagram of what makes me not the same as the person next to me. That's pretty much it. And like, again, to categorize for our brains, for it to mean anything to us, we need contrast. We need to know what's different.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it matters a lot with service businesses
Mm-hmm.
because, you can go, I mean, you can go and hire a bookkeeper. And at the end of the day, the results should be the same. You're going to have a set of books that you can review your financial reports, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what are the things that make that firm different? Do they have like a faster response time? You know, are they cheaper? And that's like, we don't really love, differentiating on price alone. We like differentiating on other things. Like, do you have a dedicated support person? Do you only work with FreshBooks where everybody else works with QuickBooks Online?
Mm-hmm.
There's like those things that like what will make that experience to the customer different, and why would somebody go to your bookkeeping firm versus a different bookkeeping firm? Similar with like, I don't know, like a SEO agency or something like that. Like at the end of the day, everybody's like saying, hey, I can help you with your SEO, but why should I work with you,
Mm-hmm.
SEO person over here versus this one over here? If you don't give somebody a clear choice on why they should work with you and why you are different, like then it, then people are going to make a decision based on price, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have to play the price game. I'm always
No.
telling people, do not play the race to the bottom and just try to be cheaper and win your customers that way, because
Mm-hmm.
you won't be able to grow your business.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other one. I worked with people, I generally only work with people who kind of are on the premium pricing end of things, not
Mhm.
as I'm a premium price, but their value is definitely premium. So yeah, that's a big part of it. And just one more thing about the difference too is that, what matters most is your customers, is really understanding your customers. And doing that means that, like, if you're not different, if I guess I'm trying to say, if you don't know who your customers are, you can't really just be different for the sake of being different. You have
Yeah.
to know what that is, based on who you're working with, your best fit clients. That's important. I just wanted to mention that because I feel like I skipped the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, you could be crazy and be like, well, we use blue and everybody else uses green. And I don't know, like we wear silly hats when we work with clients, but they don't care about that. Like that's not a point that would be valuable to them to have that differentiation.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well,
um,
probably not. There might be somebody, but yeah, no.
yeah. Um, okay, that is helpful. Well, when after you work with somebody and they have gone through this, positioning work, what is the ideal outcome of doing the work of working on your positioning?
Mhm. Yeah, so the best outcome would be that the positioning gets implemented. And much like any kind of consulting or strategy, that's just the first piece. And it's wonderful to have that direction and have defined the positioning. But if it's not put into practice in messaging or your business decisions or all of that, right, nothing really comes of it.
Yeah.
People are very excited about the idea of it. I know I do that. Like, everything sounds great. And then when it comes to doing it, it can be really freaking scary, right? You're like,
Hmm.
now I'm committing to saying things to certain people. And it doesn't mean you're saying, like, hey, if you're 45 and you have two children, it's not that. But your messaging is definitely, you care more about this kind of problem solving in what you're doing. Like you said, a bookkeeper, what would make them different? Well, I want a bookkeeper who I never have to talk to. That's some people, right?
Yeah.
Some people are like, what? I want to talk to my bookkeeper all the time. Some people are like, I want to be able to send them the thing. They come back. It's well written. I'm happy, right?
Hmm.
But I know it's a person and not a machine because they still want the option. There's all these nuances. So you're committing to that person in some way. It may not be a thing that you say exactly, but it'll come out in your messaging. It'll come out in your sales pitch.
Hmm.
And people think I'm excluding others. But when you're saying something specific and clear, even the person who that is not exactly for will understand, hey, you're the bookkeeper who does things this way. Listen, I do like talking to bookkeepers, but I love this idea of the efficiency, right?
Hmm.
Because you've talked about it that way. So anyway, implementing that's why I say making bold choices. You make the bold choice to define your positioning, and then you have to continue to make the bold choices to go in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it does, it permeates everything. That everything
Mhm.
that you do. I mean, it permeates like how you talk about yourself. It permeates, the wording on your website, your marketing messages, your, potentially even like where you go, what conferences you go to, what kind of business development you're doing, who are the strategic partners that you've worked with in the past. Like, all of the things could potentially be affected by it. But in the in the pursuit of becoming more clear in people's minds, I feel like it's well worth it to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, let's talk a little bit about the process with the YouTube channel, if
Yeah,
you're open to it. I
let's
feel
do
like,
it.
we try to kind of go behind the scenes here on this podcast and just get really specific. So as many of you know, many of you listeners know, you probably have found me because you saw the Claire CFO YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel now has almost close to 90,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And it has been kind of a whirlwind of activity over there over the past like 4 years. And what's happened is that the YouTube channel like grew for a long time and it was bringing in small business owners of all kinds, some accountants, some small business owners. But what was happening as it continued to grow is I wasn't clear on exactly who I was talking to. I talked to this very broad swath of people that I called small business owners. Um, and you would think with a YouTube channel that large and that has millions and millions of views, that we would have no want of clients coming into Claire
Mhm.
CFO. And we have gotten some really great clients from people watching the YouTube channel, booking a discovery call and coming in. But what has happened over the time was that like we were starting to see like all sorts of people like Claire CFO, we typically work with B2B service companies. And we were getting in, leads coming in from uh, nail salons and restaurants and trucking companies and kind of all these different things that would not be ideal clients for us. And really, like those were types of businesses that they were asking questions that I wasn't even really felt like I was fit to
Mhm.
answer because I don't work with those types of companies. So like I can't recommend the best software for a restaurant to use. And I don't really know some of the nuances of trucking and everything you can write off on your taxes for a trucking business,
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, we were getting a lot of questions and it was just starting to feel kind of unruly. And as much as like I have this heart to help everybody, I also was starting to really feel like I can't help everybody and have this and like feel like I can do this well.
Mhm.
So then I was kind of just thinking about the YouTube channel in general and trying to figure out like how does it work in the interplay of Claire CFO and the YouTube channel. Since that we have decided to actually separate them a little bit more and take the YouTube channel into sort of its own direction. And so that's where you came in.
Mhm.
And I actually think that I booked a call with you to see if you'd be a guest on the podcast. And then I was like, "Can I hire you?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was looking back at our emails and I was like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
clearly I needed what you were saying that you did." And I was like, "Well, we obviously need to work together."
Yeah.
But at that point in time, like, I was kind of ready to do some work. So, maybe you can kind of explain to people what we did together and, we can talk a little bit about the process.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and it was the first time for a YouTube channel. So again, we've been talking about it in the context of a business.
Mhm.
But yes, a YouTube channel can kind of be its own system within your business, a bigger, but that serves the bigger system. And so you can be positioning a YouTube channel. You can be positioning a certain campaign, and it's like again, that's providing context. It's telling people where it fits in your overall
Mhm.
business, right? It's that wayfinding. So with a YouTube channel like yours, which was doing so well, but as you said, you were ready to have it be more specifically for the audience that you serve in your business, and yeah, wanting to help everybody. That's like that's anybody I work with kind of problem because of course you want to help everybody, but as I said, highlighting your difference helps you help certain people much better, right?
Mhm.
So the idea is to do the best job you can with your skills and your difference to help those people. So that's where you were at. And I know I'm kind of recapping what you said. Um, but it works for a YouTube channel too. So the only nuance there was knowing like, and I have some experience with YouTube, was knowing what does that mean in the YouTube framework. You're going to be creating videos weekly. It's going to be in in that kind of a content framework. So we started by basically it was being curious. It's always like what I mentioned before, talking to the business owner, asking them questions about why did you start the business? Tell me your story, right?
Mhm.
And so many good things came out from you just telling everything you already know, all this, the stuff that matters to you in your business. And it was a process of, what comes up? What are the patterns? What are the themes? What are some key areas that really matter to you and will matter to your customers? So the process was through workshops. We had these longer, um, 2 hours, I think we did 2-hour workshops to just really tease that out. And the biggest thing I think that with the work I do and with the work you do is helping people to see what they can't see from the inside, right? It's not as clear to us. So that's what we were working on. And it was a lot of me asking you questions. I think that's how you might remember it, was just, please talk, Hannah, and I will take stock and see what's coming up. And I've never actually talked through this process. I can see I need to position it a little bit better, because I'm like, it could be tighter. But yeah, we went through your vision, through what matters to you. We ended up creating a manifesto. Well, you created it, but I gave it shape. And that's really what this is about, giving shape to all your disparate thoughts and the things that are there, and uncovering the gold that's there. Yeah, maybe from your perspective, you might have a better even way to say it.
I remember those times feeling like fairly effortless on my part, which was refreshing, because I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to like come up with a bunch of stuff. But yeah, you asked me questions and I was able to just, talk about what I'm passionate about, what my philosophy is, like why I like specifically, I think this would be anybody with their business, but like why I chose to, put a new video out every single week. Why does it matter? And you were able to pull all of that stuff, and you were able to like highlight keywords, and you were like, hey, I noticed this theme as you said it here, you said it here, you said it here, like, and synthesize that down into what we've ended up calling kind of core beliefs for the channel. And I recently just posted the video about like I think we ended up with 8 core beliefs. I kind of combined one of the ones that we had. I think we had 9, and then I combined 2 of them to make 8. And so we just posted that not too long ago. But by the time this comes out, it'll be about a couple months later. But those core beliefs on the channel were saying like, this is what I believe about money and business. And that was like, actually, when you had synthesized those down and presented them back to me, like I almost got emotional about it, because it just put a lot more power to the things that I already knew and I believed, but like to kind of, distill them down and make them stronger and more powerful, and really put like words behind each of the beliefs. Like it really kind of gave a lot more meat to what we were doing. And then so that process was pretty cool. And you did a lot of work on the back end to make that stuff happen. Because all I did was just talk.
Which is what I love. Yeah, the work in the back end. I do want to bring a lot to the table. So yeah, there's a lot of research, and of course finding out more about your customers, your favorite customers. That was a big part of the conversation too. What matters to them, and yeah, who do you think you could serve best, right? And again, knowing full well that will still trickle into other segments, but being clear there. And yeah, so in the back end, the process is a lot of, just a lot of research. I love digging into what is this world, right? Of a CFO group on a YouTube channel, who's doing, what. We didn't spend a ton of time on competitors or alternate solutions. Sometimes it depends on what the business is or what the project is. Sometimes I do spend more time there. In your case, we ended up spending more time in the guiding, the philosophy, the beliefs, because that's what came through, and because of the YouTube, context of things. So it's not always going to be exactly that. Yours was different than some of the others I've done, but it does come from digging into an industry and all. And I love that part, right? It's like being able to find out about other markets and how they work, and that's why I've explored a bunch of different ones so far to see which ones might I want to focus on, or do I not want to focus on? So yeah, it was such a fun thing to do, because it was my first finance area thing, and I love talking about money. Unlike some people, death, sex, and money. Those are the 3 things I like to.
I like it. Yeah, well, I love talking about money too. I think that, it definitely worked out well. And so that positioning playbook now is being used as like a guide to kind of come up with different content pillars, and to think about, maybe some different ideas of these kind of, I don't know, what did you call them? Like content pillars was one thing, but I think you used like a different term for kind of different buckets of ideas that we can kind of build some content around.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what it is. For sure, we have messaging pillars.
Yeah, I think it's the messaging pillars that I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's been helpful for me to think about, um, because coming up with content, man, it's much as like I feel like I have endless ideas. When it gets to the moment, I start to like blank sometimes.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then driving it back to like, well, what do I really want the audience to know at the end of the day? Like what do I care about them having as a tool? Then
Hmm.
that kind of goes back to it goes back to my core values. It goes back to like why I'm doing all of this, which is, that underlying work that we did. So
Hmm. Hmm.
um I'd say like the positioning of the YouTube channel will take time.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of kind of slowly moving in that direction. And it is hard to, say to people who've maybe been following me for a while to say like, hey, I'm actually not for you directly. Like
Hmm.
that's an awkward thing to say, but I mean, we'll be saying I believe that truly like I can help a certain segment, and that's going to be really that B2B service company that's growing that maybe is not yet ready for CFO services, but the one that is like maybe started by, somebody who left corporate, they wanted to build something up. That's what I did, and that's
Yep.
like what I want to see lots of other business owners do, and they're trying to get their financial house in order, and they're trying to figure out how they can start to build that sustainable business. And so I want those people to be able to come to the channel. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the trucking company won't watch my cash flow
That's
video.
right. That's right.
And they might still, other people might watch a QuickBooks video. And I think that's another thing to like think about is like, just because you're not talking directly to that one person that is in your, or that, that kind of narrower niche, or the people that you
Mhm.
really want to be working with, the message might still resonate outside of that too. And that's, I think, the one thing that you kind of helped me see as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that messaging that is more specific and clearly defined does actually end up resonating with more people,
Mm,
which is funny, right? People think, "Oh, I'm being like I'm excluding or I'm removing." No, I like the example of a doctor who, when you tell them, "Here's my pain," so we often don't even know how to say what the problem is. Like I feel stuck, or I wish I was better with money. Like we're very vague because we're not quite sure. And when you are clear on what matters and those kinds of things, and the wording you use and the content you use, you are going to tell me, okay, so this pain you're feeling, like at night, it gets worse. You got, and you're saying the things like exact, and you're like, yes, that's my problem. You've spoken to me. So it's this specific thing. Even if I don't have exactly those, the pain at night, the da 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 da, you've said three things that are still more clear than anybody else has said,
mm,
right? You feel uneasy. Well, I've told you five things for the reasons you feel uneasy. This person sees three of them. They're still going to listen because
mm.
everybody else is still using the uneasy or mm, the
Yeah.
crappy message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that. So yeah, I think it was a big fear for me is like I kind of have some goals to get the channel bigger, and the idea of narrowing the potential target audience was made me a little bit nervous. But now I think it's much more important to me to be speaking to the right people, and like the people that I can help the most, and that impact I think will be greater than just having, a vanity metric number of subscribers potentially, but
Yeah.
then not really making any deep impact on those
Mhm.
businesses.
Mhm.
So I'd rather have that, kind of the somebody saying, "Hey, I watched all your videos and it changed my business completely." Rather than like, "Oh yeah, that one QuickBooks tutorial you did, I learned something from it. That's
Right.
fine."
Right.
That's kind of what I would
Mhm.
rather have.
Yeah.
come out of it.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah. It
oh,
strikes me
yeah.
that as an individualistic society, we are scared to kind of highlight that we have these differences,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, you're not saying, everybody else bugger off.
Right.
Obviously, it's open to people. You're just saying, I really want you to feel understood. And we
Mhm.
need, like, we so want that. We want to feel like somebody gets us. So, and then on the flip side of that, too, is if I am looking for a video and you're clearly for something and it's not quite what I need, well, thank you. Because now I'm going to go look for something else. Or I might think, well, your message is so great, I'm still going to listen, but at least I know where you are. So you've done that favor to anybody who comes across your stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah.
Working on it. Well, Lynn, I know we're kind of running up on time here, unfortunately. But I do have one last question before I ask it. I want to make sure to point people to your website, which is Lynn, Lynn, Rivest, Rivest.com. Now, would you, just for the benefit of the audience, will you please say your beautiful last name in French?
My last name is Rivest.
Okay, there you go. I couldn't say it correctly, and that's like
That's good.
the East Tennessee girl trying to say your last name. I am from East Tennessee originally. Now I live out in the Pacific Northwest, but um, I would love to say your name the correct way one day. But go to lynnrivest.com, and the last question I have for you is, what is your favorite business podcast?
Yeah, so it is this podcast called Idea to Startup by Brian Scordato. His company is Tacklebox. His positioning is amazing.
Oh,
And yeah, because he's clearly, you can see, like, sometimes you can tell from the value proposition, from the headline on the website, you're like, they've done positioning work. That's not always clear, but in his case, it is. And I just really like his format, how he does the podcast, does it through storytelling, and has really great, valuable, all kinds of stuff related to businesses, startups, yes, but in this case, very clear positioning. I'm not a startup. One of my favorite podcasts.
yeah. So what is
So
the positioning? What is the
positioning is for people who want to create a startup while they still have a job,
Ah,
but want to do this within a certain amount of time. And there's more to it too that I've picked up on, like the value prop doesn't give you the whole picture, but he's very clear on who he can help best.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well so people can go and check that out.
Great.
Well, Lynn, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, on my website, you can go there. And yeah, Lynn email me at lynnrivest.com. That's the best way. I like getting emails. I think it's kind of the new old school,
Yeah.
not letters anymore. Just send me an email, How
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Lynn, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Hannah. It was fun.
A lot of fun. All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.